This is Arwinder Kaur. Welcome to Marketing Candour, a platform to bring together global marketing leaders for honest strategic conversations about marketing action, transformation, and the realities of marketing organizations. Through these conversations, I aim to bring practical insights and strategic clarity to marketers beyond buzzwords and superficial narratives. Today's episode focuses on navigating MarTech, AI, and community in modern GTM. For over a decade, marketing ops was treated like the backroom team, the people you ping on Slack or Teams when a blast email needed to go out or website form sync broke. But today, the successful companies treat marketing ops as architects of their entire revenue engine. My guest today has been leading this paradigm shift. Meet Mike Rizzo, the visionary community led founder and CEO of marketingops.com and MOPs. With a rich background spanning marketing operations, MarTech, and growth marketing, Mike has driven pipeline and community growth at companies like Mavenlink, Orange Logic, and InMobi. Please welcome Mike Rizzo. Welcome to the podcast, Mike.
Hey, thank you so much for having me. I'm as we mentioned right before we got started, I have a sort of history with the team over there, and I'm honored that you reached out. It's been many years since we last interacted, so this will be fun.
Thank you so much. Thanks a lot, Mike. And I want to jump in, start. So let me ask you the first question. What's your favorite mantra or phrase that you lean on for career success?
Ooh, it's a great question. I think I tend to be more consistent with this answer, and it's aim small, miss small. And I definitely borrowed that from a movie. But the intention of the message is that if you sort of are targeted or focused on a very specific outcome, and you're not trying to sort of boil the ocean, you won't miss as big, and you can take an incremental small loss or a small win and compound the learning to sort of move faster. And so I try to, I think it's important to take big bets for sure, but really at the end of the day, I think it's more pragmatic to sort of aim small, miss small. So that's my favorite, I don't know, phrase or whatever.
Wonderful. Small steps leading to giant success. Okay, let's start with our formal conversation, Mike. You have been very vocal about the misunderstandings around the marketing operations profession. If the MOPs people are no longer just campaign operators or system mechanics, how would a marketing CMO define the role of the marketing ops today?
Yeah, I think posed a little differently, if I were to sort of just like play the question back to you, really for the audience and anybody watching or listening in the future, it's if we were to ask a CMO or a C-suite in general, who's in charge of your go-to-market tech stack? In most cases, I would say everybody would shrug their shoulders and try to explain away that, different parts of the technology are owned by different departments. And we want the answer to be that it's a marketing operations professional. It's somebody who has come from the background of marketing operations. And so the way that a CMO might start thinking about this role is someone who is capable of translating a unique go-to-market hypothesis and motion, because every business has their own, to the capabilities of the technology that they either currently have in place or that they need to invest in. And that translation of sort of the business goals to the technology is where marketing operations professionals tend to thrive. And so I would encourage them to start thinking about the role as really go-to-market product managers and architects, and moving into a direction of having someone really own the technology as an entire suite, really as a product, and running a product roadmap.
So brilliant. So, Mike, you just said you would expect CMOs to treat marketing ops people as product managers for entire GTM systems. Now, what does it actually mean in practice? What I'm asking is, how does a markups lead go beyond data, dashboards, and tech stacks to focus on user adoption and turning MOps into a true growth engine?
I actually, I want to be careful of the drawback to revenue. Not to dismiss the fact that marketing operations and go-to-market operations professionals in general don't positively impact revenue. They absolutely can and will. But I think, the idea that someone who is in a operational function is going to have a direct line to revenue generation is a bit of a stretch, and it's always been a stretch. If we think, and I think this happens more often than not because the term marketing is in the title today. And so, if you're a marketing operations professional, it sort of feels like, well, how are you generating pipeline or how are you generating revenue? And um, you know, the sort of, I don't know, exploratory conversation to have with oneself if you're a C-suite leader or an executive of any kind leading a team in a modern go-to-market org. um, the technology companies, the software companies out there, they've got a systems architect, right? And they have product managers and they
Yes.
have engineers, right? And functionally, what we're seeing today is sort of a mix of all of those things are happening in modern go-to-market motions. But for whatever reason, we don't seem to think of them as a systems, information systems, and product the same way that we would if we were building a SaaS company. And my argument is that you should. And by putting that argument out in the world, uh, I think it's important to recognize that while I'm sure it happens from time to time, we don't always measure the ability of an engineering team or a software team or their product managers, for that matter, on how much revenue did the new feature generate. Now, we will from time to time measure a product manager on launching a feature that meets the needs of the customers to buy more of our products and services. Absolutely. In fact, a lot of software companies will prioritize their roadmap based on the ability to try to generate net new revenue or increase the retention rate. But they're not hired and fired based on their ability to build the feature, right? They're hired and fired because they're able to scope and define and implement a feature that was asked for by their customer base. And so if we kind of come back to this idea of a marketing operations professional running as a product manager, practically, which is part of the question that you asked, um, it's all about looking at how does our current technology suite meet the needs of our business's unique go-to-market motion. If that happens to be a very heavy field events play, a very heavy search play, a very heavy paid ads play, or a mix of all of these different things, I need to understand the underlying principles of that hypothesis and what the outcome on the other side is expected to be. And I need to instrument the technology suite to deliver on both how do we execute that, but how do we measure the outcome of those things. My job isn't to come up with the next dinner that we should host. My job is to make sure that when we host the dinner, I can at least facilitate the measurement and success of that entire process. Were we able to reach our target audience? Did they show up to the dinner? What were the next steps that were taking place after that? How does that information tie back to our marketing team so that we can either do more or less of the thing that worked and ultimately answer the question, is our go-to-market hypothesis working? And so running practically your tech stack as a product means you're observing the needs of the business, you're observing what you have access to in the tools today, and you're building a product roadmap that suggests here are the features we have, here's what we don't have. If we want to make these investments, here are the tools and people and process that we need to have in place in order to meet the needs of the business. And if the executive team is saying these are the needs of the business, then my roadmap should match some sort of outcome that the business is looking to achieve. And yeah, I'm impacting revenue in that way. But at the end of the day, I'm again not the person coming up with the next campaign or necessarily, trying to drive the actual demo to a close. I'm instrumenting the ability for us to measure all of those things and holding people accountable to the goals that they set and saying, well, if you want me to go, I don't know, spin up a webinar today, that's way out of scope for where we said we wanted to be spending our time. And and you want that person to have the authority to hold everybody accountable to the things that they said they wanted to do. That was a very long answer. I apologize.
It's fine. It's fine because you really talked about the fact that though marketing is in the word, marketing ops, and therefore the fitment looks natural towards marketing. Revenue should not be a direct measure, but at the same time, you have been focusing and emphasizing on their role as product manager who can really bring insights about the product roadmap and for the future teams of the marketing. And at the same time, I want to say that there has been an ongoing debate about where marketing ops should belong. You would have faced this question yourself. So, in your mind, should marketing ops sit inside marketing or under revenue ops operations function or possibly exist as a standalone strategic team? I mean, where do you see it working the best, given all that you just said about um, how it can really influence revenue, but still not be directly responsible for revenue? It is more about technology experts.
Yeah, it's tough. I think that as usual, it depends is the sort of safe answer. I think every organization is likely to have, just like they have a unique hypothesis to go to market, they're likely to have a unique structural like team setup. I don't know that there's any what do they say, like silver bullet or correct answer that is definitively true across the board. But I would say a marketing operations department and arguably executive leader should roll into the org where it can have the most success cross functionally and be seen as a strategic partner, not just in service of one piece of the business, but in service of the entire organization. In my opinion, I would say it's a bit strange perhaps, but rolling either into the CFO or the COO would be a very interesting place for them to spend their time, because their goal, of course, is to positively impact the business's go-to-market motion, but not necessarily be, um, let's say, influenced by the sort of goals of that particular department's figureheads, right? So if pipeline or top of funnel or whatever are the goals of a CRO or a CMO, naturally there's a skew in where someone's going to want to spend their time and their energy with the team that reports into them. But if we have a team that's sort of sitting cross-functionally, almost as like a chief of staff, we used to talk a lot about that. This role growing up into a chief of staff function almost. But really, I think rolling into, I said it already, but rolling into CMO or sorry, COO or a CFO role would be potentially in the future the right place for them to spend their time.
Wow, that's a completely new angle you brought to this function's responsibility and alignment. Let's talk about priorities. Mike, as an expert on my MOPs, what is your take on how to balance the pressure for immediate revenue impact that most of the marketing ops leaders face against them fixing internal system efficiencies or optimizing the different programs in their MarTech stack? Like, should the teams be really agonizing over setting up a perfect attribution model, or should they focus on pipeline measurement?
Oh, that's a great question. I would say advocating for the importance of a cleaner system of record, advocating for the importance of a streamlined and efficient process in service of the business's goals is like job number one. Um, that means that if you are being asked to measure attribution, for example, you have the authority and confidence at some point in your career to say, well, why are we trying to measure attribution? And what is it that you're looking to sort of prove at the end of the day? What's the hypothesis, right? Um, the nice thing, while attribution is a very, I centered in on that just because you happen to bring it up too. While it happens to be one of the most, I don't know, talked about subjects, particularly in our community, but certainly broadly across marketing, I also think it's simultaneously being openly recognized as it's never perfect. And so that's actually a good thing. um, because the more that leadership realizes that this thing is never going to be perfect, uh, the more that a marketing operations professional can step in and guide the organization on, let's agree on what we feel is the appropriate way to measure the success, but help me understand what it is that you're trying to achieve. And so I think where you spend your time is trying to sort of navigate the shared understanding of, well, here's how we try to go to market and how do we define success, and here's now how I'm implementing that. Do we all agree? And you're really just getting the buy-in on managing that measurement process more than anything else.
Thanks, Mike. You just said that attribution is never perfect, and in my experience, being in this function for a very long period, I've also can say that even data often is not very perfect in many organizations. So is lead scoring. People tend to keep changing lead scoring models often. Attribution, revenue life cycle, all these things are never completely perfect, but one should keep tweaking and making them as close to perfect as possible. Of course, in consultation with the GTM leaders, the marketing community, and the COO kind of roles who really are going to, shelter this function going forward in the future. Uh, so, while tech stacks are critical to marketing, of course we know, but at the end of the day, Mike, I'm sure you agree that it's the people behind the scenes who drive the success, and therefore, I would like to shift the gears to another important aspect of your work, which is communities. You had shared that your community didn't start with $1 billion vision. It started with a single blog post and an empty Slack channel where you basically said, "Hey, I'm alone in marketing ops. If anyone else is out there, I would love to talk." What was that MOPs? What was that about MOPs role that created such a sense of isolation? And how did those early conversations shape the marketingops.com community you today are running so successfully?
Thank you. I appreciate that. Yeah, it's been absolutely a labor of love. You've clearly done your research. I have definitely started as a team of one. I think the thing with marketing operations professionals is, particularly in startups, even in the SMB sector, you tend to not have very many team members that share your skills or your interests, rather. Um, and so, by virtue of that, you're kind of a self-starter. So in some cases, you might think of yourself as like an intrapreneur in many ways because you're trying to innovate constantly on adapting to the needs of the business. And I think a lot of us tend to just like kind of fall into the role because you're the one that has sort of the acumen to absorb how technology works and how go to market and sales and success and sales and marketing in general work. And so, yeah, it tends to lead to a place of, you're an individual that can solve complex challenges with technology, and it's not everybody's cup of tea. And that means that when you try to have conversations with folks internally about the challenges you're facing, you may be faced with what I was faced with, which is just kind of like eyes rolling back in their head. Like, what are you talking about? What do you mean a sync error between HubSpot and Salesforce? Like, what does that even mean? Um, and so, yeah, over the years, I just endeavored to say, if anybody's sort of faced with these challenges, and just wants to talk shop, it would be great to spend time together. And as people started to join, this is back in 2019 or so, we were getting about 110 people a month at one point into the
Yes.
community for years. Actually, that it was a strange ceiling. It always kind of hit the same number, and I don't know why. But it was right around 110 on average a month for many years. And the early conversations were just asking, hey, what do you all want to do? And what should we be talking about? And how do we organize ourselves in a way that provides value back to the community? Because at the end of the day, the community is a product in and of itself. And we deserve to service our members in as many ways as we possibly can. And over time, that evolved into what is now marketingops.com, and certification programs and events and educational curriculum and local chapters and all of those things because, well, no one wanted to be alone anymore.
Truly must compliment you on the successful community today. It's such a thriving place. I joined it a few months ago, and I'm really enjoying the conversations. Very insightful, a lot of networking, and as you said, events also, local chapters, everything. So hats off to your persistence in keeping the engagement high from 110 to perhaps thousands today that join your community every month. So, I mean, how do you see community-led growth fitting into the modern GTM playbook?
Oh, that's a great question. I actually really love this topic. I don't get to talk about it quite as much as I used to, but look, I think communities are an incredibly valuable way to build an organization. I think though the important thing is to stick with intention and just be really clear about sort of why the why behind each of your communities. And so, just practically speaking, to give some like concrete examples. There's a framework that was popularized many years ago now. Uh, but I'm blanking on what's that?
Spaces?
Yeah, the spaces model was popularized by they got bought out by Bevy. I'm just blanking on the community. It was a community for community builders, basically. CMX is what it is. And the Spaces framework is an acronym for trying to understand what kind of community we're building. And the beautiful thing about that framework, while probably not perfect, is at least gives you a structural way to think about, well, what is it that we're trying to advocate for here? Is it a service community where I'm trying to reduce the volume of service requests? Is it a product community where I'm trying to, understand the product features and roadmap that our users would want? Is it an advocacy community where I want people to sort of champion the brand and so on and so forth? And ultimately, it comes down to being very clear about that definition. And when you go to implement that community, if you lean in on this is my brand's community versus this is a community of practice that is maybe supported by a brand, you don't want to straddle the line too much and muddy the water. Either it stands on its own and it's for the people, or it stands to exist to support your business, but don't skirt back and forth between those intentions because it'll be felt by the actions. It's kind of like if you roll into the wrong team on your marketing ops org, you're going to be sort of your goals for what success looks like is dependent on what their goals are. Your community faces that same challenge. If you built a community for product feedback and all of a sudden everybody's like, well, we want people to increase the number of referrals, well, that's a totally different purpose, and structurally the software might look different too. And so I just think when businesses look to build communities, the intention is really important. And then what's really fascinating is it's end of July 2026 right now, and just to kind of give a date stamp for this conversation in the future. But at this point in time, where we sit at this intersection of AI and go to market, the connections with humans, aka like a community, even if it's virtual, right? It is so important right now. And I think it's going to hold true for the next decade. I really do. I think that businesses are going to rely much more on the connections at local events, chapter meetups, dinners, conferences, experiences, to say that we are a brand, we have a relationship, we have great people, and we want to be connected with you and we want to understand you and bring that together because AI is just like muddying the landscape so much with noise. And at this point, by the time you're reading something, I think most of us say, you know what, I actually just want to talk to a person because I have no idea if the AI is actually telling me the truth or not. I mean, I'm sure it's close.
Well, I would like to add one point over here from my side. I agree at times it feels like AI is creating more noise around us than bringing efficiency or innovation in our lives. AI has commoditized intelligence, content, and operational execution in our professions, but companies are struggling to maintain their uniqueness. At this moment, the only enduring differentiator left is brand. Whether it's a personal brand, a corporate brand, or a community's brand, just like the one you're leading. I have written about it in the recent times that consumers and B2B buyers instinctively gravitate towards the brands they deeply trust and recognize. At the same time, the premium on face to face human connection can never be replaced. AI cannot replicate the impact of looking a partner in the eye, shaking a customer's hand, or reading the subtle energy in a conference room that all of us feel when we are attending industry events or conferences. Now, business is ultimately transacted on trust, and trust remains a single human distinct currency that can be best in cash through direct connections like the one in a community. Coming back to the question that I was going to ask, Mike, your take is that AI is an enabler that frees marketing operations leaders from repetitive execution so they can focus on strategy. What are the most practical use cases you have seen where AI is successfully executing tasks in MOps?
It's a good question. I've seen a number of really interesting use cases. Some of them are sort of stopgaps or like band-aids in some ways. And, a good example of this is Sarah McNamara was on a podcast or a webinar we were all on together recently, and we were doing a bit of an AI roast, which was a lot of fun, but we also gave some practical ideas of how to implement AI. And her particular example was from actually an event that we were hosting. Her company that she now works for needed to have the leads that they were scanning. They need to be able to capture that information. And for those of us that have been in marketing ops for a while, translating sort of field marketing lead scans and spreadsheets to a formatted database structure that matches your needs inside of your CRM and your MAP, your marketing automation platform. It's funny that I feel I feel the need to define MAP, but I don't define CRM. Isn't that funny? Anyway, sorry, sidebar. Anyway, so she took an AI workflow and basically allowed it to read images from the badges that they were taking pictures of, and then go through a bit of a enrichment step and make sure that that data got mapped into their CRM and marketing automation platform and then sent to Slack. And there was work up front that happened, but the AI taking over for formatting and formalizing and moving the data around into the right systems, that was a lot of effort that was saved in that example, right? I think there's other really good ones too. Campaign operations, there's the work that goes up front. This is the thing. I just want to pause here for a second or like focus in on this moment. If you're a leader listening to this, there's a lot of work that goes up front to allow AI to drive more scale and more success. When I say campaign operations can be supported by AI and make things more efficient, it's because someone sat there and figured out what it is that you're doing and how that needs to enter a system, and they created a process for that. Some person did that first. So, for example, if you host webinars, there's probably a standard playbook that you're going to go through. There's going to be an intake form to collect all kinds of key data points. And those key data points are very different depending on which team you're on. Someone spent the time to map out, well, what is it that we're trying to collect? What system does it live in? Who's working on it? And at what point is it ready to be pushed into our webinar tool, right? And then emails are allowed to be sent and so on and so forth. If you structurally figure out how that stuff works, AI can be an immense helper in translating all of that information that was captured to outputs for emails, landing page copy, and write-ups that humans can review and spruce up if you want. It can even get to a point now where it can actually go build the design once someone's actually reviewed and approved the design. But you have to have somebody in place to define all of those steps. And so they're really practical use cases that are really powerful that now you went from being able to do 2 webinars a month to 7, right? I feel bad for your marketing database at that point, but but you could, right? Because it got more efficient. So anyway, I don't want to belabor the point, but there's some amazing things that you can do. I just want to continue to advocate for the fact that there's humans that actually make that possible.
Absolutely, perfectly. Yeah, correct. And data is the foundation for all MarTech, marketing ops, work that we do. So if the data is garbage, the results is going to be bad. But after data as a foundation, I think the next is the integrations of the MarTech stack that we have to do, which is a map with CRM and map with the Tableau dashboards or the BI tools, etc. And then with this AI coming into our lives, now it's the challenge of orchestrating the multiple AI agents that have come into existence, whether it's campaign personalization or data hygiene and normalization agents, and so on and so forth. Now, there's so much to do. But what happens if a MarCops leader walks into a new job and inherits a completely fractured Frankenstein tech stack? Mike, what do you think? Where should that person begin the redesign?
Oh, that's a great question. Um, I think you begin with you begin by trying to understand the outcomes. I say it differently all the time. Begin with the end in mind, and
Yes, that's a very
it's yeah. And so when you ask your team, uh, you know, what is it that you're trying to achieve? What are our goals? What markets are we selling to? How do we measure those things? Just seek to understand first what they're trying to achieve, and then back your way sort of up or backwards or whatever into understanding what systems touch those outcomes and how they help or hinder the ability for those things to take place. And you may eventually find yourself refactoring your tech stack in a way that recognizes you said our goal is X. I've identified that we have 5 solutions that all help with that goal, and therefore we should probably consider removing one of those because this one seems to be the most in use. This one seems to be the most adopted, the most well loved, the most impactful to that outcome. You'll be able to sort of measure your effectiveness of your tech stack based on the understanding of where somebody or an organization is trying to go. And so I think it's always just starting with conversations. You you can understand the roadmap and the landscape of a business's go-to-market hypothesis. It'll take a lot of effort, a lot of cross collaboration and discussion with different teams. But by getting that input first, you can kind of go back in with more of a clue of what to look for, right? If you just sort of opened the hood of your tech stack and started to see, like maybe you jumped into the finance side and you saw all the software categories that they were subscribed to, and you just started to pick one and say, well, why are we using this? You'll get a different answer from all kinds of different people, and it's the wrong question to be asking. The question to be asking is, what are we trying to achieve? And then go back into the software to say, well, which ones of these solutions is impacting it? And you can have a more forensic sort of audit taking place. So that's where I recommend you start with a Frankenstack.
Thank you. I know time is running out for you, but before I let you go, I want to have a lightning round of few questions to get your candid gut reaction advice. Just 3 questions. First, Mike, what is the single most overrated MarTech tool or category right now as per you?
AI. Or if I had to be really specific, I don't know, Claude. No, but AI in general. AI is overrated. Um, I know it sounds crazy to say that because everybody's, wanting to adopt AI, but it's overrated. It provides a ton of value. You just need people to use it in the right ways. And I think the perception has been that it's now so easy. And the reality is there's actually a lot of hard work that goes into it. So it's not as easy as it looks.
People with the right skill and the right mindset, both, to run this AI. My next question, in one sentence, what does MOPs look like in 3 years? Will the title still exist?
The title marketing operations professional will still exist in 3 years. The future of marketing operations will be go-to-market product managers and go-to-market product architects, and they'll grow into that. It won't be for everybody, and that's why the title will still exist, because there's people that are very passionate about implementing marketing technology and solutions in service of the core pillars of what make up marketing operations. If you haven't spent time looking up the pillars of marketing operations, there's the original set and there's a new set, both of which can be found online with a quick Google, and those are not going away. But the ability to evolve into or grow into a leader of a go-to-market technology suite, that's where this career is going.
And my final question for this rapid round is, beyond technical chops, what makes a marketing ops professional truly great?
Curiosity. Yeah.
Lovely.
Curiosity. I think anyone who has the instinct to sort of self-serve and find the answer on their own, if their instinct is to Google first, or look through documentation that they were told exists, that makes a really great marketing operations professional. And that constant inquisitive curiosity for seeking to understand how things work makes somebody really, really strong. I'd say the secondary piece of that is just like communication skills. It doesn't mean that you need to be what is that called? An extrovert, right? You don't need to be an extrovert in any sense of the word, but I think just learning how to navigate conversations with complex challenges around like technology. Those are softer skills that just take time and practice. And so if you're someone who's a bit more of an introvert and you like to just sort of stay behind the scenes, I would encourage you to get those reps in and get the practice in on just talking to people and building relationships, because it's about cross collaboration. Very, very much so. But I would say, yeah, curiosity is like number one.
Wow. Mike, this has been an absolute masterclass in rethinking the revenue engine. For the GTM leaders and ops folks listening who want to plug into your community or follow your work, what's the best place to find you, Mark?
I mean, I'm on LinkedIn. You can find me with my handle. It's just Mike D Rizzo, and the community, of course. You can come to marketingops.com and find me there anytime. I'm just a Slack away or a message in our forum away. We have a forum as well. So
thank you so much for joining me on this Marketing Candour. And to all our listeners, we'll see you all next time. Thank you very much.